I'm a ranger in Kentucky's deepest caverns. The night rules are insane. They warned me not to stay in the caverns after sundown. Told me about the rules. Cryptic, ridiculous things like don't look at reflections and don't whistle past the third marker. I laughed it off. I thought I was tough. But on my third night, when I broke just one rule, something down there woke up, and now it won't let me leave. The first time I stepped into the Echo Vale Caverns, the silence struck me harder than the cold. You don't expect silence to be loud, but this place, it hums in your bones. The air isn't just still, it feels watched, as though the cave itself is listening, deciding whether to let you in or let you out. My name is Mason Delaney, and after 12 years in the National Park Service, I thought I'd seen it all. Raging wildfires, bear attacks, missing hikers. But none of that prepared me for what I found in those depths. I was transferred to Echo Vale as a favor. Small ranger station, low profile, supposedly boring duty. But when I arrived, the station chief, a wiry man named Officer Bell, gave me the strangest welcome. "You'll be fine during the day," he said, sliding a yellowed pamphlet across the table. "But if you're on night duty, these are the rules. Follow them exactly." I smirked. The paper looked like it had been copied 100 times. Faded ink, coffee stains. It read like urban legend trash. Night shift protocol, Echo Vale Caverns. Rule number 1, do not enter the caverns after 8:33 p.m. Rule number 2, if inside after that time, do not use your flashlight for longer than 60 seconds at a time. Rule number 3, do not respond to voices unless you can see the speaker. Rule number 4, never look into standing water after midnight. Rule number 5, if you hear whistling, run. Rule number 6, the last rule is blacked out, just a thick line of marker. I looked up from the list and laughed. "You serious?" Bell didn't even blink. "You think I'm joking? You're dead before the month's out." That night, I didn't sleep. Echo Vale Caverns run beneath a stretch of rural Kentucky that barely appears on maps. It's a honeycomb of limestone chambers and tight passages, some of them plunging hundreds of feet beneath the surface. Most of it hasn't even been mapped. By my third day, I was itching to see the deeper zones. The tourists only go about a mile and before the paths close off. My job was to patrol those deeper halls, check for cave-ins, lost gear, that sort of thing. During daylight, it felt manageable. Strange, but manageable. But when the sun dipped behind the Appalachian Ridge and the cave grew darker, something about it changed. The light didn't fade like normal. It seemed to be pushed out, smothered by the cave's breath. Even the electric lanterns we installed in the upper levels flickered erratically after nightfall, as if something were interfering. My first night shift was quiet. I followed the main patrol route, flashlight in hand, nerve shot. I didn't go beyond the second marker, a jagged rock outcropping known as the Jawbone, and I was back at the surface by 8:25 p.m. But the second night, that's when I started hearing things. It began with the soft crunch of gravel, far down one of the side tunnels. I stopped, listened. Nothing, just a drip of mineral water somewhere beyond. Then came a whisper, faint, just my name, drawn out like a breath caught between rocks. Mason. I turned fast, lights sweeping the jagged walls. No one. I backed out of the tunnel, flashlight shaking in my grip. I didn't even check the time. I bolted to the surface, heart pounding, and didn't stop until I was inside the ranger station with every lock turned. Officer Bell was waiting in the kitchen, sipping coffee. "You heard it, didn't you?" he asked. I nodded. "That's rule 3, he said quietly. "Voices with no bodies. They're not echoes. They're bait." The next day I asked questions. Lots of them. Bell didn't give much. "This land's older than sin," he muttered, flipping through an incident report. You think Native Americans didn't come here first. You think it's a coincidence nothing grows above these caverns. That livestock won't graze within 2 miles. He leaned forward, voice low. Something sleeps down there, and it don't like to be disturbed. I didn't want to believe him, but the look in his eyes, the kind of weary dread you only see in men who've stared too long into darkness, made it hard to ignore. So I followed the rules, as best I could. Night 3. That's when everything went to hell. A couple of campers had wandered off trail earlier that day, and one was still missing. I volunteered to check the lower shafts in case he'd gotten lost. The descent was slow. Each level down, the air got heavier, damper, like walking through a lung that hadn't breathed in years. By the time I reached the third marker, a formation known as the Widow's Spine, the time on my watch read 8:27 p.m. I should have turned around. I know that now. But I heard something. A sob, not the whispering from before. This was different. Sharp, desperate. Help, please. And then, I'm stuck. I flicked on my flashlight and called out. Ranger Delaney, if you can hear me, call back. Silence. Then another cry. Down here. I made the choice. I broke the rule. I passed the spine and headed into an uncharted passage known as Black Hollow. The tunnel was tight, only about 4 feet wide and sloping down at a steady angle. My flashlight flickered once, twice, and held. As I rounded a bend, I saw it. A figure slumped against the wall, maybe 30 feet away. A man, shirt torn, bloody ankle. I stepped forward. You okay? I called. No answer. 10 more steps. Still no movement. Then he looked up and grinned. Every tooth was wrong. Too many. All filed to little ivory daggers. His eyes were black, pupil-less, wet and glistening like a frog's. And then he whistled. It was low, almost tuneless, but it echoed twice. Once from ahead, once from behind. I turned, beam whipping around, but the tunnel was empty. When I turned back, the figure was gone. Gone. No scuff marks. No blood. Just stone. My light sputtered. Died. I counted. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, desperately tapping the casing. At 43 seconds, it flickered back on. The tunnel was no longer empty. Shapes lined the walls. Lean figures, tall as the ceiling, each with arms too long and heads that brushed the rock. They didn't move, just stood there, watching. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat closed like a fist. I turned and ran. The flashlight bounced wildly as I sprinted, tripping once, bashing my elbow, scrambling back to my feet. My breath came in ragged gulps. Behind me, soft whistling began again, rising, falling, echoing like laughter. When I reached the Widow's Spine, I dropped the flashlight. Light spilled in every direction, too bright, too sudden. The tunnel was empty again, not even footprints. I left it, ran straight back to the station, didn't even check the time. Belle found me an hour later, sitting on the kitchen floor, holding my knees. You went past the third marker, he said, not question. I nodded. He sighed, crouching beside me. They know you now, he said. You saw them, and they saw you. The next morning, the sun rose like nothing had happened. But something had changed. I could feel it. It started with the birds. There were none. Not a single chirp outside the ranger station. Not even the usual flutter of wings or rustle in the treetops. Just that same heavy silence that clung to the cave at night, now bleeding into the daylight. Officer Bell was already up, brewing his third pot of coffee. He didn't look surprised when I told him what I saw. They're called the Hollow Men, he said, lighting a cigarette with trembling fingers. Or at least, that's what the old records call them. They don't like flashlights, don't like to be seen. But they saw me, I muttered. He nodded grimly. And now the clock's ticking. Once you've broken a rule, you only get so many nights before they try to collect. I didn't like the way he said that. Collect. Like I was a debt that needed settling. That day I stayed topside, patrolled the forest trails, rechecked the perimeter fences, anything to avoid going back into the earth. But my mind wouldn't leave the caverns. I kept remembering that figure's grin, the impossible teeth, the sharp whistle that had echoed in my bones. I didn't tell anyone what I saw. Who would believe me? The other rangers were seasonal kids from college. None of them went near the deep tunnels after sundown. And those that did never came back the same. There's a photo wall in the back hallway of the station. A bunch of smiling faces, ranger classes from years past. Bell pointed to one with 6 people in it. That was 2017, he said. Only 2 of them finished the season. The others all broke the rules. What happened? Disappeared. One went home in the middle of the night. Left his keys, his phone. Another walked straight into the widow's spine without gear. We found her boots. Just the boots. I stared at the photo. All of them smiling. Like they had no idea they were already doomed. That night, Bell made me stay in the station. I didn't argue. He locked the doors. Every window was boarded except one, and even that had iron bars across it. The cabin was old, built during Prohibition, probably to hide moonshine. Now it was a bunker against whatever crawled out of those limestone hollows after dark. We didn't talk much. Just sat in the kitchen, the only room with steady light, passing a bottle back and forth. Around midnight, the sound began. Not outside the cabin, inside the walls. First, the scratching. Gentle at first, like mice. Then heavier, like fingernails. And then tapping. Rhythmic. Deliberate. 4 taps. Pause. For more. Bell stood suddenly, knocking over his chair. He held up a hand. "Don't speak," he whispered. I froze. The tapping stopped. Then came the voice. It was mine. "Mason," it said. "Open the door, man. Something's out there. It's not safe. Let me in." I looked at Bell. My lips moved, but he shook his head violently. He reached into the drawer and pulled out a small, rusted bell. He rang it once, clear and sharp. The voice vanished. "The hollow men can wear faces," Bell said. "Voices too. They'll sound like your mother, your best friend. Hell, they'll even sound like you. But they're hollow inside. You answer them. You invite them." I didn't sleep. At dawn, I stepped outside to piss and saw claw marks on the porch rail. Long gouges that hadn't been there the day before. And in the dirt, bare footprints. No shoes, no toes. Just smooth impressions, as if someone had dipped hooves in ash and walked upright. They stopped 3 feet from the door. They didn't need a knock. They just wanted me to hear them. Day 5. I woke up to find a new note on my bunk. Same yellowed paper. Same faded type. Addendum to rules. Following a breach. Rule number 7. If marked, do not sleep underground. Rule number 8. Do not bleed in the cave. Rule number 9. If you find your own voice coming from behind you, do not turn around. Rule number 10. Never whistle back. I didn't know which scared me more, that someone had typed it recently, or that it looked older than anything in the cabin. Who left this? I asked. Bell just said, "You're not the first one they've noticed." I had to go back down, not to prove anything, not for pride, because the missing camper, the one from a few days back, his girlfriend showed up at the station. She had a voicemail on her phone, from his number, but the message was a recording of my voice. I found him. I was saying, "He's alive, but injured. Bring help. We're at the widow's spine." I never left that message, but she had it, time-stamped and real. I looked at Bell. He just said, "They want you back down there." I left before sunset. Took 2 flashlights, both tested, along with a flare gun, a combat knife, and a compass. As I descended into the cave, the temperature dropped like a stone. My breath fogged in front of me. Every sound bounced strangely off the walls, like the cave was twisting them, distorting their origin. By the time I passed the jawbone, the lights on my helmet cam began to flicker. My backup flashlight worked fine at first. Then I saw him, the camper, slumped against the wall like before. Same torn clothes, same bloodied ankle. But when I shined the light on his face, it wasn't his face anymore. It was mine, smiling. No pupils, just black, wet sockets. And then he opened his mouth. A perfect mimicry of my own voice echoed through the cave. "You're almost out of time." I fired the flare. It screamed into the ceiling, bursting with harsh red light. And for a moment, I saw them. Dozens. The Hollow Men, crawling along the walls like spiders, long limbs folding and unfolding as they moved without sound, skin pale and stretched, faces expressionless and eyeless, except for the mouths. All of them were smiling. The light faded. They vanished. But something had changed inside me. My chest felt heavy. My ears buzzed. I stumbled back toward the surface, only to find a new tunnel, one I hadn't seen before. It wasn't on the map, not even Bell's charts. I don't know why, but I stepped in. The tunnel sloped upward, not down. The walls were smoother, too smooth, like something made them, not nature. As I walked, the air grew warmer. I could smell something, burnt cinnamon and rot. And then, footsteps behind me. But every time I turned, there was nothing, until I passed a pool of water. And in the reflection, I wasn't alone. Something was standing behind me. Tall, lean, mouth too wide, and eyes like burnt coal. I turned to face it. Nothing. But when I looked back at the water again, I was smiling, even though I wasn't. My reflection moved without me. It raised its hand and waved. I ran, sprinted up that tunnel, not caring where it went, scraping shoulders on the walls, screaming until my throat tore raw. I don't remember exiting the cave, just Belle pouring whiskey into my mouth and muttering prayers I didn't recognize. "You broke another rule," he whispered. I could barely speak. "Which one?" He looked at me, eyes tired. "You looked into the water after midnight." That night, I didn't dream, but when I woke, my boots were wet. And my reflection, it blinked before I did. They told me never to break the rules. But it wasn't just the rules that were cursed. It was the memory of every time someone broke them. The caverns aren't just alive. They remember. And now, they remember me. I didn't leave the ranger station for 2 days. I couldn't. My legs trembled like they didn't belong to me. My reflection in the mirror still blinked at the wrong times. And worse, when I finally fell asleep, it was waiting for me. The other me. The one with black pits for eyes. The one that smiled too wide and whispered things I never remembered saying. "You're already in," it said. "They won't let you out." Bell kept a wary eye on me. He didn't ask what happened in the tunnels. He didn't need to. Instead, he handed me another paper. This one wasn't typed. It was handwritten in shaky cursive, stained with something dark and flaked, like dried blood or rust. It wasn't signed, just titled, "Memory Rules." Rule number 11. If you see your own footprints where they shouldn't be, erase them. Rule number 12. If you smell flowers underground, leave immediately. Rule number 13. If you forget how you got to a chamber, you're led there. Retrace your steps backward. Exactly. Rule number 14. If your flashlight flickers and doesn't go out, it's trying to warn you. Rule number 15. They remember who breaks the rules. They always remember. I set the paper down, hands clammy. "This isn't a cave," I whispered. "It's a system, a trap." Belle just muttered. "It's worse than that. It's a memory with teeth." I tried to file a report, tried to call for backup, evac, anything. The phones were dead. Cell service had been gone for days, but even the old landline just buzzed like it was underwater. I radioed the fire watch tower. No reply. I tried the emergency signal. Nothing. And then I heard it again. My voice, coming through the radio. Return to the widow's spine. Alone. The transmission looped once, then cut to static. I looked at Bell. He said nothing, just handed me a walkie. If you're going back, he said, you'll need this. Why? I asked. Because I'm not going with you. I didn't go that night. I waited until the morning. The rules didn't say you had to return at night, and I wasn't about to volunteer for another hellish descent under moonlight. If the Hollow Men wanted me, they'd have to try harder than a spooky voicemail. But as I walked through the mouth of the caverns the next day, I realized something terrifying. The cave was different. It had changed. The layout wasn't the same. The jawbone arch was cracked. The walls, once rough, had grown unnaturally smooth. Worse, there were carvings now. Hundreds of tiny scratches, overlapping each other in a feverish tangle. Faces, claws, and something like words, but in no language I recognized. I snapped a picture with my phone, but when I looked at the gallery later, the photo was gone. Only a black square remained. An hour in, I found my first marker, an old backpack, torn open, with a rusted ranger badge inside. Not mine, not Bell's. Someone else had come this way. I flipped the badge over. The nameplate read, W. Kelly, Ranger Class, 1999. I remember that name. He was on the wall of missing staff. Never found a body, Bell had told me. Not even bones. That backpack was soaked with something sticky, still wet. That's when I noticed the smell. Honeysuckle. Sweet and unnatural. Rule number 12. If you smell flowers underground, leave immediately. I turned to retrace my steps, and the tunnel behind me was gone. In its place, solid stone. I hadn't walked into a tunnel. I'd been led into a chamber. I tried to breathe, calm down, retrace my steps backward. Right foot, left foot, right foot again. Whispered the turns to myself. Turned at the fork, climbed under the shelf, stepped over the puddle. But there was no puddle now, no shelf, only darkness. And then my flashlight flickered. Rule number 14. If your flashlight flickers and doesn't go out, it's trying to warn you. I stopped moving, and in the silence, I heard footsteps. Not mine. Heavy, measured, coming from behind. I turned slowly. Nothing. But when I looked at the ground, footprints, exactly like mine, but reversed, as if I'd walked this way, backwards. And they weren't fading. They were getting deeper. I walked carefully, following my own prints in reverse, trying to think like the cave wanted me to, give it what it expected, pretend I belonged. It worked for a while, until I reached the central atrium, the widow's spine. Except it wasn't empty. It was filled with bones, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, stacked like driftwood around the base of the spire. Skulls grinning blindly from within the piles. Femurs snapped clean like twigs. Something had arranged them, as if they were part of a ritual. And in the center stood me, or it looked like me. Same height, same ranger uniform, same scar on my cheek. It raised a hand and mimicked me perfectly, even tilted its head like I do when I'm trying to listen to distant sounds. Then it spoke. "Why did you come back?" it asked in my voice. I didn't answer. It took a step forward. "You don't belong here anymore," it said. "You belong below." I backed away, slipping on bones. "You're not me," I whispered. It grinned. "I'm the part you left behind." I turned and ran. Didn't care about the rules. Didn't care about retracing steps or making noise. I just ran. But the cave didn't let me go easily. The walls pulsed with something alive. The floor squirmed beneath my boots. At one point, the light flickered, and I passed through a narrow stone throat that breathed as I moved through it. My walkie crackled. Mason, Mason, do not go toward the sound. You'll never come back if you do. I repeat, the signal cut off, and I heard singing. A woman's voice. Soft, almost sad. It came from deeper in the tunnels, and with it, flowers. Bright, white blossoms sprouting along the walls, even though there was no light. Honeysuckle. I shoved past it, scrambled up a slope I didn't recognize. Hands bleeding, knees raw, then sunlight. I clawed out of the tunnel like a man escaping his grave. Collapsed just outside the cave mouth, gasping for air, retching onto the grass. When I looked down, my reflection stared back from a pool of water at the cave's mouth. It blinked with me, but it smiled. Back at the station, Bell didn't say a word, just handed me a matchbook. Burn your boots, he said. If they walk too deep, they might remember the path. I did. Tossed them in a fire and watched them blacken and melt. But that night, as I lay in bed, I heard whispering from beneath the floorboards. My voice, and hers, the one that was singing. I thought I made it out of the caverns. I thought burning my boots would erase the path I walked. But the truth is, I never really left. And now, something is following me, wearing my face, whispering in my voice, and breaking every rule I swore to follow. I kept the lights on in the ranger cabin that night. Every single one. The overhead fluorescents buzzed nonstop. I even rigged the emergency lanterns to stay on using a car battery from the station's garage. I wasn't about to let darkness settle in again. Not even for a second. Bell didn't argue. He just sat in the corner with a rifle across his lap, staring at the door. I asked him if it ever tried to follow him back out of the caves. He said, without looking at me, only once. What happened? He finally turned. His face was pale. I woke up with footprints on my ceiling, bare ones, facing down. The next morning, we went to the overlook above the sinkhole, where the earth yawned into nothing. You could hear the wind moan from within it, but it wasn't like any wind I'd ever heard. It was too wet. Bell passed me a tin box wrapped in twine. Inside was an old cassette recorder, a cracked compass, and a tooth. Not human. Found these on my second week, he said. That recorder? Don't play it unless you're ready to hear what the cave remembers. Why give it to me? I asked. He exhaled slow. Because it remembers you now, not me. I didn't play the cassette. Not right away. But I did take the tooth. It was long, jagged, and warm to the touch, like it had just come from something alive. Later that afternoon, I caught my own reflection doing something it shouldn't have. I'd walked past the station's glass cabinet, saw my reflection move half a second late. It smiled after I'd already turned my head. That night, I locked every mirror in the cabin behind the supply closet, but they still found me. I was brushing my teeth when I noticed the bathroom mirror's surface start to fog. Even though the air was cold, letters began to scrawl into the condensation. You broke the rules. Then they vanished. And behind the fog, for a moment, I saw not myself, but that other Mason again. Eyes like cracked obsidian. He mouthed something I couldn't hear, but I understood it anyway. Let me back in. The worst part, I wasn't even sure I hadn't already let him. That night, I sleepwalked. Bell found me standing barefoot outside the cabin, 20 feet from the trail down to the caves, just staring into the trees. I didn't respond when he called me. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe, according to him. When I came to, I had scratches down my arms, dirt under my nails, and the taste of honeysuckle on my tongue. We tried to burn the trail. It was Bell's idea. He soaked the main entry with gas and tossed a flare. The flames took quickly, too quickly. The cave didn't scream. It laughed. Low, guttural echoes boomed from the darkness beyond the fire, as if something deep inside found the fire amusing. Then the wind blew in the wrong direction, inward toward the cave. The fire collapsed into itself, extinguished in seconds. Bell dropped the gas can, backing away. "It's not fire we need," he said hoarsely. "It's closure. Closure." He looked at me. "You left something behind, and it wants to come back." The cassette tape stared at me all night. I finally played it. The voice was mine, not like a recording of me reading something aloud. No, it was me, recorded without my knowledge. Words I never remembered saying. Phrases that made no sense unless you'd been in the tunnels. She hums when she feeds. The deeper you go, the younger the bones. The rules are only a kindness. They can stop being kind. Then, after 2 minutes of static, something else. Breathing. Not mine. Not Belle's. Something wet and ragged. And then a whisper, soft, in a language that made my head hurt to hear. I shut the tape off. But that night, I heard the voice again. Not from the player. From inside the walls. It wasn't just inside me now. It was becoming me. I noticed it in little things first. My boots were tighter, as if my feet had changed shape. My pupils were dilating irregularly. And when I opened the station freezer one night, every ice cube had cracked in the same spiderweb pattern, just like the carvings on the tunnel walls. I went to Bell, told him I needed to go back down. "I have to finish it," I said. "It won't stop unless I do." He didn't fight me, but he gave me one final warning. "If you see a door that shouldn't be there, don't open it." That's where they decide. The return to the cave felt like a funeral march. I wore new boots, a helmet with dual lights, and brought extra batteries. The rules I had memorized like scripture, but the further I went, the more I realized. The rules had changed. The signs were all wrong. The hollowed-out tree near the first marker had been replaced with a standing stone, covered in glyphs. The passage I crawled through before was now tall enough to walk. And the silence, it wasn't empty. It watched. At the widow's spine, the bones were gone, but the spire itself had changed. Now it pulsed, slow, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. And around its base were mirrors. Not glass, but stones so polished it reflected perfectly. In those reflections, I saw versions of myself. One covered in blood, one with hollow eyes, one dragging Belle's body. I turned away, and there, across the chamber, was the door. Ancient, circular, blacker than night. Etched across its frame were 5 words in deep gouges. "Only the remembered may enter." I reached for the handle. It burned, and behind me, I heard my voice. "You shouldn't have come back." I spun around and faced myself. But this time, he was closer. Same clothes, same voice, same cadence. But his chest didn't rise when he breathed. He raised his hand and pressed it to my chest. "No heartbeat," he whispered. "You left it behind." I staggered back. "Where?" I asked, voice hoarse. He smiled. "Through the door." I opened it. Darkness didn't spill out. It sucked me in. The walls vanished. The air vanished. Even my thoughts felt distant, like I was dreaming underwater. And in that endless void, I saw them. The judges. Not people. Not creatures. Just forms. Vast and eyeless. Shaped like dripping statues of bone and ash. Their mouths were lines etched in shadow, and they spoke not in words, but in memory. I felt them inside me, tearing through every broken rule I'd committed like pages from a journal. He followed the light. He heard the song. He looked at himself too long. I tried to speak, tried to beg, but they had already decided. When I woke, I was outside the cave again. No memory of climbing out. My hands were clean, my boots untouched, and Belle was gone. Only a note remained, written in red marker on the cabin door. "You came back wrong. I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time, then turned and saw my reflection in the window. It smiled, but I didn't. I thought surviving the caverns was the end of the nightmare. But it was only the beginning. Something crossed back with me. Something that looks like me, thinks like me, but isn't me. Now the rules are breaking on their own. The forest is shifting, and the night wants me back. The cabin door creaked open by itself the moment I approached it. The note bell had left me still clung to the splintered wood, flapping gently in the wind. You came back wrong. I'm sorry. I stood there for nearly a minute, unable to go inside. There was something about the air, too still, too quiet. No cicadas, no owls, just an unnatural hush, like the whole forest was holding its breath. I finally stepped in. The lights were off. I hadn't left them that way. The moment the door closed behind me, every lantern in the room flickered to life. Except the light was red. Dark, throbbing red. And in that bloody hue, I saw my reflection standing at the far end of the room. Only this time, it wasn't mimicking me. It moved when I didn't. It smiled before I did. It spoke first. You left the door open too long. I froze. Where's Belle? I asked. It blinked slowly. He's with the others now. The ones who followed the wrong path. The ones who didn't listen. I reached for my sidearm, but the holster was empty. The reflection held it up, dangling it from one finger like a toy. You won't need this anymore. It only works on things with souls. I ran, out the back, through the trees, down toward the old ranger station, the one condemned after the fire years ago. I didn't care. I needed walls. I needed something between me and it. The moment I stepped inside, I knew I'd made a mistake. Because the station wasn't abandoned anymore. The walls had been painted with symbols, those same jagged spirals and sigils from the cave. Bones hung from the rafters like wind chimes. Animal skulls lined the fireplace. And in the center of the room sat Belle, or what was left of him. He was tied to a chair with barbed wire, mouth stitched shut, eyes wide open but lifeless. Pinned to his chest was his own name tag. Underneath it, scrawled in blood. He tried to help. I stumbled back, gagging. But then the door slammed shut, and the reflection walked in. It didn't attack me. It just studied me, pacing, smiling. You still think you're you, it whispered. But how can you be sure? How do you know I didn't walk out in your skin that night? And you're the one still trapped down there. No, I croaked. I remember the climb. I remember leaving. Do you? Or do you remember what we let you remember? I backed toward the corner, fumbling for anything to defend myself. The fireplace poker, the broken glass from a lantern, but none of it mattered, because it wasn't afraid of pain. The reflection leaned in close, so close I could smell the damp rock on its breath. You know why the night rules exist? They're not warnings. They're bargains. Agreements to keep us out. Its skin shimmered, briefly, like something beneath was trying to burst through. And in that flicker, I saw the truth. It wasn't wearing my face. It was my face, like a perfect mold, filled with something ancient and ravenous. I lunged with the poker, ramming it through its side. It didn't flinch. It laughed, then shoved me against the wall with impossible strength. We're merging, Mason. The rules didn't save you. They marked you. I don't remember how I got out of the old station. I woke up miles away, face down in the creek that winds past the cave's entrance. My skin was cold. My veins felt like they were filled with smoke. But I was alive, or something close to it. The sky was dark. A full moon hung low, and carved into the dirt beside me, in deep gouges, were new rules. Rules I'd never seen before. Rule 1. Don't leave offerings unless they ask. Rule 2. If you hear your name spoken twice, don't answer. Rule 3. You're not the only Mason anymore. Rule 4. Burn what doesn't cast a shadow. Rule 5. When the red lanterns glow, do not blink. My hand was trembling, And then I heard my name. Once, then again, from behind me. Same tone, same rhythm, same voice. I didn't answer. I ran. Back at the cabin, I locked every door, pushed the couch against the entrance, taped over every mirror, every reflective surface, sat with my back to the wall, shotgun in my lap, eyes wide open. The reflection didn't return that night, but I heard it pacing on the roof, mimicking every footstep I'd made earlier, whistling a tune I hadn't whistled in years. For weeks, I documented everything. The changes in the woods, the whispers on the wind, the faces in puddles. Every time I passed by a reflective surface, my reflection was a heartbeat behind. Sometimes it mouthed things I hadn't said. Sometimes it wept. Sometimes it just watched. And then the rules started changing on their own. One day, Rule 3, "You're not the only Mason anymore," was crossed out, replaced with, "You've always been the other one." I stared at it for an hour, then blacked out. When I came to, I had new carvings on my chest, glyphs like the ones on the cave wall, etched in my skin, deep, painful, fresh, and I couldn't remember doing it. I tried to leave. I packed the truck, drove as far as I could toward the nearest town, didn't even make it 2 miles. The road folded, literally folded like a crease in paper. Trees leaned in. Time stuttered. I blinked, and I was back at the cabin. The truck's engine still running. No gas used. Just reset. That's when I knew. I didn't survive the cave. I didn't leave it. Not really. I just carried it with me. Or maybe it carried me with it. Last week, I found a letter outside the cabin. No postage. Just my name. Inside was a photo. Of me. But not me now. Me, standing in front of the sinkhole. Years ago. Before I'd ever worked here. Wearing the same uniform. Same badge. Same scars. The date on the photo? 1976. I burned the picture. But the next morning, it was taped to the mirror. Smiling. Waving. So now I wait. I follow the new rules. I keep the red lanterns burning. I don't speak when I hear my name. And I don't blink when the night watches. Because I'm not just a ranger anymore. I'm a guardian. A prisoner. A copy. Maybe I was never Mason to begin with. Maybe I'm what the cavern lets people become. A vessel. A warning. A story whispered around fire pits by those who still think the forest is just trees. So if you ever visit Kentucky, if you find the deepest caverns, and you see someone in a ranger uniform waving at you from the darkness, don't wave back. Don't follow the light. And whatever you do, obey the night rules.